Hello, everybody. It's Thursday, December 23rd, and this is the Backdrop Weekly Outreach meeting. Before we get into the meeting, what we usually do is we go around the room and introduce ourselves. So I'll start with myself. I'm Greg. I'm joining from Greece. I'm interested in anything related to Backdrop and here to help any way I can. And I'll pass it on to Robert.
I'm Robert Lang, web folder on the internet, coming to you from rainy Altadena, California. And I've been working on lots of loose ends lately. And I'll pass it to Tim.
Hi, I'm Tim, and I am actually not in Deerwood, Minnesota this week. I'm down in Minneapolis, Minnesota, just a few blocks from our friend Wilbur's house. And at a coffee shop. So down for the holidays. We got family stuff last night and tomorrow night. So Justin.
I'm Justin Christopherson, just in Denver, Colorado. And usually I help out with infrastructure tasks when things pop up. Luke.
Oh, did Luke join us?
How do you like that? I'm Luke McCormick. I'm in Saramone, California, where I'm a technical account manager for Drupal things. Been out of the pocket for a while, but I figured I had a little bandwidth today. I'd stop by and see what's going on in Backdrop world.
Okay.
Anybody else left?
That's it. Right. We've all went. Okay. So I'll go ahead and start. It's a crazy time right now. It's the holiday season here for many of us. And we're in the midst of a feature freeze rush. So there's a lot of activity in the core issue queue. Personally, I've been focused on those things, so I haven't really thought at all about the agenda. I know I have had some big ideas in the last week that I wanted to talk about at the next outreach meeting, and now I don't remember what they are. So we'll see if they come up. I suppose I'll just outline to start out with what I think has happened in the world of outreach in the last week or 2 weeks. We did at the last outreach meeting. I don't know if you were here, Luke, but we talked a little bit about Yorkshire Pudding. I'm forgetting his name. Recommended that we get a backdrop page set up on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn was the one social media channel where we didn't even have a backdrop page. So we do have one in Facebook and we have one in Twitter. And anyways, as of now, we have one in LinkedIn as well. I think I posted there like twice since the last meeting. I have been posting on occasion in Facebook too, like at least every 2 or 3 weeks, which is better than what has been in the past, once every 2 or 3 months. So, and with Twitter, we continue to be more active. Actually, your idea, Greg, would be something that we could talk about, the sort of partner thing, because that was an interesting development, and I'd love to get Luke. It'd be great to do it at a time when Luke's around. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that it's happened in the last week or 2 weeks. But we're behind on our newsletter. I keep promising to do that, and I don't know. I've been too sucked into the core issue queue. I'm not doing the outreach stuff as much.
I have an idea. I have an idea that I'm dying to interject in, which actually has to do with partnerships. So let me see if it chains right into whatever Greg has to say about partnerships, and see if that surreptitiously works for us.
Yeah.
Greg, do you want to? Yeah, go ahead and introduce your topic.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that I posted it somewhere where you had visibility, team. I'm not sure if the rest of the guys look. I think it was in the leadership.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and find the page that we're talking about, the example that triggered this discussion, and I'll share my screen as soon as I do. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Tim posted this is something that I also do as well. From time to time, I do a Google search on Backdrop CMS like every, 3 or 4 months, and then try to find any mentions of Backdrop, and then I add it in the mention section for our website. And Tim have found this week or last week found a few mentions. And one of them was a blog post by a company which is actually providing long-term support for D7 sites. And the blog post was saying that, hey, among other things, that, hey, if you don't want to go, you don't have the budget, and you don't want to go to D9, have you heard of Backdrop? We can help you move into that. So I've brought this matter previously, like in other meetings, that there were a few partners in the official long-term support program that the Drupal Association has initiated. But our, not concerns, but our thoughts then were that their business model was not to actually move people to Backdrop, rather than, you know, have a prolonged support period for D7 sites and keep them in D7. Well, whereas these people seem to be willing to actually move their customers to Backdrop if they don't want to go with D9. My thought was that, and Tim's sharing that page, that blog post now. I'm assuming you found it. So yeah, that's the blog post. Showed up for a minute. It's gone. There you go.
It's back now, though, right?
Yes, it is. It is.
Yep. Yep. And
So
I'm working on my laptop instead of my home computer, so everything getting the wrong buttons. Go ahead.
So if you scroll slightly down, Tim, it's the paragraph where it talks about Drupal Backdrop. Sorry. So it's that one, right? It says, do you love Drupal 7 and blah blah. So yeah. So my point is that either specifically with these guys, like, or have this as an experiment, and try to reach out to as many agencies that are actually doing the same thing. As in, specifically with these guys, I looked up their business in Drupal.org, and it's like 34 people that have Drupal.org accounts. There might be more of them. Judging from the agency that I work for, we're like 50 people strong, and I don't know, 60% of us have Drupal.org accounts. And unfortunately, I can't tell which person has written this blog post. So I thought that maybe we could reach out to them and say, do you have any questions? Do you need help with anything? And ask them if, because I didn't see any names that were familiar from the usual suspects that I call the people that are actually very active in our community, and, you know, get them to contribute. That's what I thought. And I think that we should be doing that with other agencies that we know that are involved actively with Backdrop one way or the other. So yeah.
Well, Greg, I mean, to elaborate, Greg, you opened a topic in the leadership channel called strategic partnerships, which I think is actually an interesting idea. And one model of what you were suggesting would be to figure out a more systematic way of trying to partner with some organizations like this to one, support them, and to keep them engaged in the community.
Exactly.
I think certainly things like this have happened in the Drupal community. We do this super passively, like, people can list themselves on backdrop.org as supporters. Agencies can, but really that's the extent of it. Once they've sort of added their name to backdrop.org and they're listed there, nothing, we don't have any formal follow-up to that. And I could see, either going two directions. Like you just talked about, sort of trying to engage them more in the community. The other thing is, one, trying to find more agencies like this and seeing what we can do to help get them behind Backdrop and promoting it more. And, would it help if we provided them with assets, or do we just need to give them more training? One of the thoughts that I've had in thinking about this over the last week is, what if we actually did a special, like a webinar, where we reached out specifically to agencies like this, and said, hey, we're doing a special event targeted at sort of these mid-range agencies to talk about Backdrop, and we'd love to hear from you, to one, show you why we think it might be valuable to you, but also to hear feedback from you. And it's getting noisy here, so I'm going to mute myself, see if anybody else.
All right, well, here, good, because I want to do a little soliloquy. This was actually I've been struck recently with a particular, what strikes me as concentrated pool of Drupal 7 orphans. That's similar to the agencies, but I've been thinking that we should specifically reach out to Drupal 7 distributions, a number of which have no viable Drupal 8, Drupal 9, Drupal 10 plans to them, and they strike me as a group that's about to become a large collection of abandonware. And rather than like bring them into the infrastructure, I think there's something we said for getting them to view themselves as a group. Kind of compiling a list of the distributions and other and things that are similar to like that. I mean, universities, for example, strike me as a big thing where we have any pool of people that have all together built up things that are that rely on the Drupal 7 model, where they've assembled modules basically. Although I don't want to cause too much ruckus, but if we could support Drupal 7 themes, that might be a strategic thing that would be advantageous. But even leaving aside specific technical directions, just creating a community of you who have been abandoned. At least we care. there's some group that understands what you're going through, and let's put you in touch with each other. Let's work with us. Tell us what you need. Tell us what you need to succeed. Because there's groups that have put like a huge amount of work into these platforms, and they don't have the resources and the time to convert it all to an entirely new architecture, and so they're currently planning to abandon things, near as I can tell, and they're going to be stranding all their users. So that's my whole idea comes down to the word distributions. Let's take that as a focus and get in touch with people from each of the major distributions and see if they're interested in the lifeboat, and see how they view about that, and maybe we can get some critical mass there.
Yeah, for example, while listening to what you were saying, just sort of like as a form of a quick research, I just went to the listing of Drupal distributions, and the most popular, or at least the ones that show up first, is for example Panoply, and that one does not have, like, its 8.x version is still in alpha, last updated in 2019, and they do say that Drupal 8 and Drupal 9 is still in alpha. I'm not sure how much percentage of their community is sort of like actively pursuing that, because it's been a while and it's still in alpha, right? Alpha 15. And then if I'm reading this correctly, the other one is Opinio or Opino LMS. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it properly.
Yep. That has a Drupal 8.
That one has actually a Drupal 9 ready release, 3.0.0, which was recently updated. So maybe we need to sort of like filter through the most popular ones that actually do not have a stable D8 or D9 release, either one of those, and reach out to them. And then I was thinking, they have, to my knowledge, there have been no backdrop distributions, right? We have a fork of backdrop, but we have no distributions.
Right.
And I do vaguely recall a few issues related to distributions, which are basically user profiles, right? Sorry, installation profiles, right?
Yep.
Exactly. So I hear you, look, when you say how we can help them and that we care. But when you said that, I actually wondered how can we help them. In other words, let me rephrase what I was trying to say is that can we help them?
Sure.
Is it more straightforward for? Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Sure. I'd like to jump in, and I mean I think that these ideas sort of dovetail, and we could do similar efforts. Like I like the very minimal. I like your idea, Luke. I'm not sure how far it goes, but it seems like it's worth exploring. And I think the very minimum level would be to just sort of reach out and have an outreach meeting with some of them and talk about, does this make sense? I think some of the big, like one of the bigger distributions might be like Commerce Kickstart, which we don't have a lot to offer them because we don't have commerce. On the other hand, it might be that some of them would be motivated to help bring commerce. On the other hand, I think that their upgrade option to Drupal 8 is probably easier because there is a Drupal 8 version, right? But there are a bunch of them that don't have upgrade options. And, you know, like Panoply, I think that would be another one that I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense to port from Panoply to Backdrop because the layout system is so different already. I was kind of under the impression that Panoply wasn't going to Drupal 8 at all, just because Drupal 8 already includes things in core that Panoply was trying to solve problems that have been solved by Drupal 8 core, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway,
but I mean, my point is to reach out to communities and not try to solve their problems for them. You know, let them solve it for themselves. But just you know, give them the hotline number. I mean, in my case, I actually have an abandoned site. So like I was reminded of it because my ebdug site runs on Drupal Commons, right? and that is gone, not going to be supported. But I'm guessing I'm not the only Drupal Commons site out there. I actually worked on a really big one.
I think you phrased it perfectly, Luke, which was just to sort of reach out and sort of offer a hand, but we, you know, not promise anything because we don't know, you know, it's not like we have a robust distribution system. On the other hand, maybe this is the way to kickstart it, is to get.
Well, I mean, if you want sort of a concrete thing, a meeting, you know, so some like few weeks, months, whatever, however long we need to find them and be like, come here and let's find out, you know, we don't know. We suspect there's issues. We suspect you have troubles. We don't know what they are. Come tell us and let's find out.
Yeah, basically ask the question, do you think that Backdrop might be a useful option for you? You know, tell us, you know, rather than try and sell them on the idea. It's like, you know, we could pitch to them what we think the advantages might be, and then ask them, do these make sense to you? And like you say, even if we're just in the end helping them coordinate a little bit, we're still sort of providing a service, and we're still going to get PR value out of it, whether or not they actually come to us or not.
Maybe there could be a viral element to it, where it's like look, we're trying to find who's in this state, and we don't know where they are. So like, are you in the state? If you're not in the state, do you know anybody who's in the state? Like, forward, here's the thing. Here's the help package. Get it down the line, you know, pass it down the line, and then, you know, meet us on February 15th, something like that, somewhere.
Right. Yeah, I think that's about the right time frame. To me, the next steps are really, I mean, the key to making this work, I think, is somebody, and Luke, maybe this is something that you'd be interested in, that's really sort of willing to spearhead that meeting and facilitate it and just help do the outreach. It's the kind of thing I would love to do, but I've been promising to do too many things and not delivering that I don't want to add another thing to that list.
Yeah, well, look, my plate's clear at the moment, so why not?
Well, you know, we could also tie it into Backdrop. The next Backdrop Live is like a summit or something. We don't have to, so we could do it completely separate. But an option would be to make it be like a featured event at Backdrop Live.
I like a tie-in. When's the next Backdrop Live?
Well, in roughly 2 months, which is why, that's kind of why I thought about it. It's like the timing would be right. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? To me, I mean, this is the direction this go, and the strategy might be different, but I kind of like the idea of doing a similar meeting with, going back to Greg's idea, which the approach will be a little bit different with Greg's idea. With Greg's idea, the strategic partnership is, rather than sort of waiting for them to come to us, is for us to have a special sort of webinar, or I don't know if I would call it that, or a meeting that we invite, and what I would say is we just try to randomly identify 10. I wouldn't go after the lullabots or the, but although maybe, I mean, lullabot's not a good example because of the peculiar relationship we have with them already. So we probably would include them. But my point being that, to maybe go, not necessarily go after the top 10 Drupal companies, but to go after some, 10 or 15 of the mid-range ones, and just schedule a special meeting where we sort of do a pitch, and we build this to them as just an opportunity for them to learn more about what's going on in Backdrop, and a chance for them to ask us questions directly. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of those agencies sort of have Backdrop. We know a number of them have done blog posts about us, but usually their blog post just sort of mentions Backdrop as an option. The difference between this new target one that Greg pointed out is they were actually saying, hey, come to work with us to upgrade to Backdrop. And that's the first time I think I've seen that, right? All the other ones have sort of said, like, hey, Backdrop is an option. And what if we reached out to a number of those agencies and said, here's a meeting specifically targeted at people like you with other people like you, where we can talk about, like, answer any questions you have, also get feedback from you, like what it is that would make Backdrop more interesting to you. So I would like plan for a 90-minute meeting where like 30 minutes is us giving our intro pitch, because some of them won't divert it. And then the last hour is really like Q&A and discussion.
Yeah.
Maybe they want something easy and we just haven't given them a chance to throw it. Maybe they're wanting to do something for us and they just don't know who to ask, when to ask, what the appropriate thing is. I mean, that.
Yeah. My idea was to reach out to those agencies. For example, I'm taking, for example, real life. So the agency that I work for is enterprise, and they're trying to move all customers from D7 to 8 and now 9, right? So that wouldn't be a good candidate because they clearly stated that no, we're not interested. So the agency that we should go after, if I'm using the term appropriately, is those that said that they can offer long-term support for D7. And yeah, this is going to be offered alongside what the Drupal community does for a while for D7. But after that point, what are you going to do? Like at some point, you will need to find another solution. Maybe you're buying some time for your customers, but then, yeah, what?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
And yeah, the other thing that I was thinking was that, well, I think that the official list of people in D.org agencies, I think there's only 3. I could be wrong. I've checked that months ago, which is the official long-term support, sort of like, I can't remember, is it the Steward? So I'm confusing this.
I think there's 5 or 6 now. I looked just a couple days ago.
And is this one that did the blog post, the new target?
I don't think so.
Okay, so they're actually. So here's the thing. I think that at some point the Drupal Association tried to monetize that as well, right? So because in order to be in the official sort of like list of providers, you had to pay a considerable amount, right? And without knowing the amount of customers that you were going to get or the return in investment, a lot of agencies might have not done. But this is an example of an agency that said, look, I'm not the official provider of SATS long-term support, but I am providing long-term support, right? Or they
Well,
might call it something. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand it that way, but I get your point.
Yeah. So anyways, when I first suggested that a few months ago, I was actually referring to that specific list, the official list. But now this presented an opportunity to say, hey, there's other people as well, right, which are doing that. I know how to find the names, at least, of the agencies that are in the official list, but I don't know how to find the others. So this is something that randomly came to our attention. So yeah, anyways, I don't know how to go about searching for them.
I think, so Greg, I mean, I agree 100% that the ones that are officially, I mean, I was a little bit, your last pitch, I was a little bit skeptical about like necessarily how receptive these long-term Drupal support people would be, but not against contacting them. I think obviously in this effort, they would be a logical place to outreach. But I think there's also another just wide range of, there's a certain group of Drupal agencies which are just committed to Drupal 9, right? And they're not interested in projects that aren't Drupal 9 scope. But there are like Drupal 7 or Drupal agencies that also do WordPress work, that do other work. And it's like, why wouldn't they consider a backdrop, right? And it's like, well, the main reason they may not be considering it is because they really just haven't had time to, to really research it. Or haven't bothered. And if we were to like reach out to them and say, hey, we're doing a special meeting targeted at folks like you, they might see, this is exactly the opportunity they've been waiting for to do some research.
So as actually, because we're reaching the last 10 or so minutes of this meeting, as actionable items, I would say, I don't know how to do it, but as bullet points, I would say, find a list of SATS agencies. That's a starting point. Since we do have one SATS example, is actually reach out to them. And my questions there is, because I happen to be the PMC and so do you, Tim, do we reach them as members of the PMC or just as members of the community? Either way, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think it doesn't hurt to use the PMC thing.
Yes.
And ideally, I think we would like to make this an official invitation, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
I mean,
it's for the good of the project, right? So yeah, I understand what you're saying. The other question that I didn't know, or else I would have done it already, is I found a list of 34 people that are in d.org that are working for this agency. I don't know which one to reach out to. So who do I just randomly pick a person and say, hey?
No, I mean, I'd be interested in Luke's feedback on this. I think that we reach out to somebody in some level of leadership, right? We're not trying to just reach an average developer. We're trying to reach somebody in the company that might be helping shape policy and ask them.
I mean, they all have websites. All the websites are going to have a contact us button. I would say first step is to contact them from the contact us.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Well, I think Greg is just asking if they give lists of names. I would go higher up the list of names. I wouldn't randomly contact somebody.
Oh yeah. I'm saying if
contact us form is fine. Yeah.
If they don't get back to you, then like you can dig in and try to find backdoors. But I'm thinking, I mean, on our support page, we have 55 service providers listed there. So I'm
sure. I actually think, Greg, that as long as we set our we don't have excessive expectations, finding agencies won't be that hard. We can just Google them. We can we could start on our own list. Exactly. And what I would do is go look, browse through them and find out if there's some there could be some that signed up, 5-6 years ago and had good intentions, and then just haven't done anything. And this would be a great chance to re-engage with them. So,
yeah.
Okay. How do we coordinate this? Do you want me to create an issue? Do we create a spreadsheet so that we don't double up? Like I don't contact the agency and then Luke does. Do we do that?
Well, I mean, slow down a minute. Okay. You make it sound like we're going to hang up the meeting and start contacting people. I think. Well, okay. I would say, to me, the ideal situation is to first plan a meeting to invite them to, right? To just contact them out of the blue without even having like a target date is is not ideal. However, that doesn't mean that we couldn't make a few such approaches to just sort of gauge reaction even before. So, the first couple people we contact might be just, hey, we're exploring this idea. Would you be interested in? But I wouldn't like start blanketing. I wouldn't go to too many people until we first targeted a few and also firmed up our message a bit. So I think we need another week or two.
We have a meeting, it's this meeting, that we can invite those initial people to.
Yeah, we could, but I wouldn't. First of all, I don't want to invite them to a public meeting. Right.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Yes. You're right.
So
you're right.
It's not a bad idea, Greg, but I think a better idea is a special meeting that's targeted at them, that they know is exclusive to them, that isn't going to become public, right? That they can explore and talk to us without it being on YouTube.
Okay.
And,
so
yeah.
I'm pitching
Sorry, go ahead.
two things to proceed a meeting. I think there's some form of survey. I think there's some kind of things where there's some questions like, give them some, here's us reaching out to you to ask, and then some form of pitch, like here's possible proposals. And then once those two things, and those, I'm not sure which order they go in, but like once there's kind of a back and forth and sort of an identification of sort of like, a little market for this. Then we have a meeting to be like, okay, whoever like from this first two levels has like bubbled up as having like carrying it all. then we get them together and then refine whatever the like rough proposal was. But no, I think it sounds plausible and doable and valuable to me.
I think that using the contact form on their side for this specific agency to say, hey, can you please let me know who is the person that actually wrote the blog article and or who authored it, right? Because it could be a different person that has sort of like ordered this and another person that approved it or whatever. And then we go from there. And also just also mention that who I am and if you have any questions and things like that. Or if they have a specific, but yes, Tim, I see you, sorry.
I mean, I don't care who wrote the blog post, Greg. I think that as an agency, they're interested. So I would be, I think you could contact anyone there and just say, who would be the best person to talk to? And it might be the person who wrote the blog post, it might not, but your strategy doesn't hurt. I just don't know if it's necessary. Luke, there's no doubt. I mean, I think that there are different strategies that we could proceed, and like your strategy is one. Your strategy just strikes me as being 2 or 3 times the amount of work and less likely to happen. So it's like if you were saying to me, Tim, I have the time and this is the strategy I want to pursue, I would be fully behind it. But if it's like, okay, we're going to try to figure out some way to make this happen, I would start with the easier one, which I think is sufficient, which is to just sort of invite some people to a meeting. But either is valuable. And if you and I wanted to get together and talk about this and decide like how much time we got.
Oh yeah, no. I was just saying, Greg, in the meantime, since you're psycho, I think you should email this blog post and be like, hi, I'm Greg, let's talk. Like I think that totally makes sense.
I agree. And I would just say that we before anybody if anybody, let's say it this way, if anybody reaches out to an agency to explore this idea, just let the rest of us know. So, but I wouldn't start blanketing agencies yet, but I think a targeted, doing that one agency is fine. And getting some sense from them, either bouncing this idea off them or however you choose to sort of follow up. But to gather a little bit of intel would be helpful to us in making decisions.
I mean, they'll be thrilled to hear from you.
Yeah.
So there's no lose from this one.
Yeah, and I think I'll use the contact form, and hopefully they will reply. I can then use the umbrella email address that we have for the members of the PMC. At least we can do that so that when I reply, I CC the rest of the PMC so that we are all across things. Yeah, and then we can take it from there. Refresh my memory. Have we set a tentative event date for the next Backdrop Live?
Yeah, it's on the website already.
Okay, cool.
Go to backdrop.org. We have tentative dates for the next Backdrop Live. And And, you know, again, this is something that we could combine with Backdrop Live, or we could keep separate either way. But there's two. I want to ask if Jen can interrupt and say hi if she wants. I want to ask Luke one more question, and because it's very much related to this. Another thing that has come up over the last few months. Jen, do you want to jump in and say hi?
Hello. Sorry.
Well, you unmuted, so I wanted to give you a chance.
I was trying to adjust my microphone, but I think.
Okay. We will, we'll update you on what we talked about in a minute, but, well, on a really high level, we were just talking about a couple of different audiences to reach out to. And we talked about sort of agencies, and we talked about distributions, Drupal 7 distributions, which I'd be interested to hear your input on later. But the other group that has come up, after the last Backdrop Live, we had a brief exchange with like a CMS influencer. And some people said what we should be doing is cultivating relationships with influencers. And my gut reaction is, yeah, that's a great idea, but this is one I don't know how to do. I don't know who the influencers are that would benefit from partnering with, or how to reach them. Is this something you've thought about, Luke? Like who would be an influencer?
Is CM Watch still out there? That was CM Esquire.
I don't remember. Jen might remember the name of the particular guy that we had this brief, like 1 or 2 post exchange with this one guy. Jen, do you remember his name?
I don't. But I can find out. Let's see.
I think I'm forgetting his name. Maz from Switzerland. I think he looked him up and said,
yes,
he's much more of a corporate CMS guy. And so he didn't think that he would necessarily be an influencer in our market. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was his impression. But do you have like, I mean, I hear this strategy all the time in marketing, is identify influencers and try to cater to them. But I don't know who our influencers are. They're, like a podcast, Drupal podcast hosts would be one obvious group. But I think we've done actually pretty good at getting on their shows. They've been reaching out to us. I don't know if there's podcasts that we've missed, but beyond that, I kind of I'm at a loss. So you seem stumped as well. Yeah, Luke.
No, there's actually a couple. There's sort of a community of podcasts that don't know about us, but now that I'm pondering, like I've never really thought about it, but they might actually run stories about it. Like there are sort of related things where they're not competing CMSs, like where there are other web technologies.
There is a whole genre of podcasts that are about like using tech to start a small business or things like that, right? Or some of them are very, I run into a couple of them that do a lot on WordPress, but they're not WordPress specific. And the one, I think almost all of them that we've been a part of have been Drupal ones. And it might be nice to try and reach out to some of these more neutral podcasts that cover this area, but
yeah.
Anyways, we're running out of time. I'm going to be quiet. Does anybody else have anything they want to talk about for a minute before we end this meeting? I'm going to
shop talk. That's what I was trying to think of.
Okay.
The shop talk podcast, I think, would be a possibility.
Sounds like it could be a good one. So a related idea I had, which we probably don't have much time to talk about, that would be, what about WordPress? I think it would be easier to identify WordPress influencers. And I would be interested in reaching out to some WordPress influencers and saying, hey, have you heard of this thing called Backdrop? We'd like to show it to you and just get your opinion. Not try to sell it to them, but just sort of get their feedback on it. And it could be some of them like say, oh, wow, we had no idea that's out there and want to do a show about it. And I think it would be much easier to identify WordPress influencers just because there's such a bigger market. There's so many WordPress podcasts and blogs. Anyways,
my experience of reaching out to WordPress guys, and I guess it's as expected as it is, you could potentially get to them if they have in mind or in their roadmap a complex project, but the showstopper for them usually, and from the people that are doing the WordPress camps in my hometown, is that you don't have enough themes.
right.
It's always what's bothering them.
Yep. But again, my goal in reaching out to them isn't to sell them on doing a backdrop project. It's to just say, we want you to be aware of this and we'd like your feedback. And if their feedback is repeatedly, we need more themes, then we've benefited from reaching out to them.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's wrap this meeting up and get ready for the dev meeting. And I'm just realizing my computer might die any second.